So a little while ago, you guys may have seen that I uploaded a YouTube short about my new server build. And that server's been great and all, but the hard drives are just kind of loose and laying around in the case, and it's not really a case, it's a gaming case. It's not really designed for a server. And I wanted something a little bit more legit. So this is an unbranded server case. Well, it obviously has a brand, but it's in some form of Chinese or Japanese language or something. So I'm not sure how to read the name even, but it's a 4U deep server case, which can fit a full ATX motherboard and a ton of hard drives. So yeah, I'd say this thing is pretty legit. So I unfortunately don't actually have a server rack or anything yet, but I do plan on getting all the equipment for it, the rack, the rails, and everything you need for a server and having a full-fledged server, but I figured I'd start out with the case at least first because you don't necessarily need a rack to have the case. So like I said, you can fit a full ATX motherboard in here, a full ATX power supply here, and then tons and tons of space for hard drives. These are technically for like CD drives or something, but you can also mount SSDs or hard drives in here as well. So this is going to be awesome. So with that, let's tear down the old server. So I've got most of the important stuff out of the old case for now, and I'm going to be building in the new server case now. So I'm first going to install the power supply. The one I'm using here is from a brand called ASROCK. Now I know that doesn't sound the most trustworthy, but basically, they are the supplier for, or the maker of power supplies for companies like Dell and HP and Acer and all those. And from the research I've done, they seem to be pretty trustworthy. So I don't really have too much of a problem putting this power supply in my server at the moment. Because this is just a power supply I had laying around. And so what I'd like to do eventually is upgrade to probably something from EVGA or something like that. Hopefully something that's like 80 plus gold rated or something. This power supply is 80 plus bronze, so it's not terrible, but I would like something at least a little bit more efficient. So I'm now going to install the motherboard. This motherboard should look pretty familiar to a lot of you guys, because this is the ASROCK Z68 Extreme 3 Gen 3 motherboard that I actually used to have in my test bench. That was, I don't know, a good while back actually. So I've upgraded the CPU to an i7 2700K. I think it used to be like a 2nd gen i5 or something like that. But I was originally going to, the reason I upgraded it to a 2700K is because I was actually originally going to sell this board in a gaming PC, a budget gaming PC. But I then realized, well, I could build a server out of this thing instead. which would be a much better use case for me. But by then I sold the i5, so I'm stuck with the 2700K in here, which isn't, it's a great CPU, it's just not really something necessarily like great for a server, because it is an unlocked processor, but I mean it should be fine, and it's been working actually really well the last, I don't know, few weeks or so that I've had it in my server so far. I'm running TrueNAS on this server, and I've been, you know, monitoring the CPU usage, and I mean it's like usually below like 1% usage. Even like when transferring files, it's like maybe 5% usage. So this CPU is pretty overkill for a server, but hey, that's alright. So I've got the motherboard all hooked up, and now I want to remove the front intake fan because it has a Molex connector. I don't want to use a Molex connector because that's just gonna, I mean, they just suck. Everything should be SATA nowadays if it does need to be powered, and so it's just gonna run at like full speed all the time, which is very annoying. Plus my power supply doesn't actually have a Molex connector on it. It only has SATA, so I'm actually forced to use a SATA connector. So something that's actually pretty cool, they actually have this little foam dust filter over the fan. I'm not sure if I'm gonna leave that on there or not. That's gonna, it'll be nice not to have so much dust, but that's gonna like limit airflow a lot. I mean, that dust filter is pretty thick, honestly. I'm actually gonna be installing this EVGA fan as the 120mm intake. I've actually tested this thing out, or used it in a few like different builds and like test benches and stuff, and this thing does really good. It pushes a lot of air. So I am now going to be adding the hard drives to the cage here. I need to remember which way this goes. Okay, so it goes like that, and you just slide them in and screw them in. So I've got all the drives installed in the cage, including the boot SSD, which has the operating system on it, and I actually had to move all of the screws from the bottom side to the top side, so that I don't have to take the entire cage out anytime I need to change out a drive or take out a drive or something. So now they're all accessible from the top, so I can reinstall this cage. Also, I put the SSD all the way at the end here so that I can add, I believe I can fit 3 more drives in there if I need to. So the only thing left to do now is see if it boots up. Got power. Oh, forgot to turn the power supply on. That honestly scared me for a second. Now power. Well, it's pretty loud. And there we go. Server is booting. Also, something I didn't show you guys while I was building this thing, I also added a little drawer in this disk drive bay so that I can store, you know, anything that I need to for the server, such as extra parts or screws and things like that. So guys, I am so stoked to finally actually have like a legit server case. I'm sure there's a lot of mistakes that I made in this video that server people are probably just like screaming about right now, but it works, it's functional, and I'm just happy to have some mass storage that I can edit off of and have all my business information on. And so yeah, so eventually I want to get a server rack and a network switch and all that stuff and have like the full thing, but for now this is good enough for me. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.